and welcome to the Crimson Stitchery. My name is Anushka and you can find me elsewhere online as a Sour Telling. That's my username on Instagram and Ravelry, where we also have a Ravelry group. So hello and welcome to another podcast episode. These are the kind of show and tell episodes that I release once a fortnight, and hello to any new subscribers. We've had a little bump in new subscriptions over the last week, and that's because I released a video called Knitting and Crochet on a Budget. There's a link up there in case you haven't seen it yet, and yeah, it's proven to be very, very popular because it turns out that everybody is interested in saving money, which is definitely something that I've got a little bit of experience with. So hi and welcome if you are new to the channel. Just before we get started, I guess I'll address my outfit. It's far too hot for anything knitted, even cotton, so I've resorted to a pair of silver tap pants that I sewed myself a few years ago that I can just about squeeze into and do the zip up on because yeah, lockdown has proven to be a rather static period over the last 5 or 6 months. And as I was getting changed, you know, because I wanted to look for something that I had made, it occurred to me that I looked a little bit like a 1920s tap dancer. Without the tap shoes, I really do have 2 left feet. Dance lessons were a torture as a little girl. We are in the middle of a heat wave. Right now it's like 31 degrees outside in my garden over there. And yeah, a few months ago I released an episode where I dressed up as a 1960s go-go dancer. So at this rate I seem to be going backwards in time through reiterations of showgirl costumes per 40 years. So if I continue in this pattern, by the time we get to, let's say, about October, I guess I'll go back to the 1880s and it will be some kind of can thing. So we'll see if that ever transpires, but I'm not going to make any promises as it is. So in this fortnight's podcast episode, I've got a little bit of knitting to show you, not absolutely tons because it has been pretty warm, and also I've been finalising some autumnal knitting plans. Which, you know, will show up in the future. And then I've got a little bit of mending and Larder Life, and very exciting is that I'm going to be sharing the prizes, the grand prizes for the Crimson Sockalong, which is the knit along that I've been running since May, from May till October for 6 months, where you're invited to knit and share any of my sock knitting patterns, which are available on Ravelry, as well as another online storefront called PayHip, for which you don't need a Ravelry account if that's not available to you right now. So I'll just get straight on with it and talk about what's in my knitting basket. Now, I had expected to have actually finished my Christmas jumper. I started knitting a Christmas jumper, it was all very weird. But yeah, I actually haven't because it got so warm I just couldn't bear to have this thing on my lap. But I got pretty far, as you can see. So I'm knitting Julgran by Andy Satterland, which is a jumper knit from the top down in the round. So just having it all on my body was really hot, to say the least, and it's very, very tight. Maybe not the best decision to have made for the winter time period, but anyway, it's very tight. It's got a lot of negative ease, and the sleeves are very, very tight as well. So it's basically like a top, and yeah, as you can see, hopefully it's got this Christmas tree on it. So I added quite a lot of modifications. I made the Christmas tree much longer. I made the body a bit longer too, whilst I made the ribbing a bit shorter. And then I added these puff sleeves, so you can see this very, very square puffed sleeve head. I can't quite remember where I got to last episode, but that's that. So even though this sweater in the pattern, like it's quite jazzy, it's like lime green, and she's got sequins and stuff embroidered all over the Christmas tree as baubles. So I went for a kind of classic white, but then I camped it up with these enormous puff sleeves. So it's got this really 1940s silhouette, like a very tight body. And this square shoulder line. So what it needs is the neckband doing. It's a kind of chunky fold over collar, almost like a turtleneck. So I've got to do that, but even just letting it touch my leg is just way too much. So yeah, I've got to do that. We'll see if that gets done over the next couple of weeks, but I'm not in any rush to finish that off. Although I do need to, because I feel like the whips are going to start mounting up, the works in progress. And I don't really like it when that happens. I find it a bit stressful. And that yarn was Rowan Kid Classic, which is wool and mohair. And I've ended up kind of like a destashing project because I had bought it and started knitting another jumper and then changed my mind about it and unravelled it. And I've ended up with about 3 balls left. This is 50 grams, and this is this one here that's been wound by hand. It looks like it's 2 of these ready-made ones in one that I've wound by hand. So yeah, that's sort of one of the things that I've discovered with my Stashless 2020 initiative, which is something that I've been running since January, and there's a link on screen now to the playlist if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that. But yeah, a big thing about that was that I just kept ending up with all of these leftover balls, and at first I wanted to hang on to them just in case they became useful and use them in scrap projects and stuff like that. But actually, as it stands at the moment, something like this I'm inclined just to give away, as a destash or something like that. I kind of feel like maybe we don't need to hang on to absolutely everything. Yeah, just more thoughts that I'm having about that. And Stashless 2020 has been a really wonderful community initiative that so many people have joined in on. There's a hashtag on Instagram as well. And there's been loads of finished objects that have been popping up on that, especially recently, which has been really lovely to see. So thank you for sharing those. And the initiative occurred most kind of verbosely on Ravelry towards the early spring before lockdown, I would say. But I think everything that's been happening with the website changes with Ravelry, as well as people's changing circumstances at home, have sort of changed the kind of participation in that sense. I'm sure you get a sense of what I mean. But anyway, the point being that if you're new and you'd like to read a little bit more about that, do watch the videos and check out the Ravelry thread, which I'll link to in the show notes down below. Because there were some really, really fantastic and thoughtful, nuanced discussions from a range of different point of views, which were just a delight to read and very, very eye-opening too. So the next thing I'll talk about is the Crimson Sockalong, which I mentioned is my knit-along for knitting any of my sock patterns. And it's not too late to join in, you can do it any time, and there are various patterns for shorty socks as well, which you're very welcome to do. And I even saw that one knitter had adapted one of my patterns for her baby, which was just so brilliant to see. really felt like such a reward. So I'll talk about what I knitted first, and then I'll talk about prizes. So I've got a swatch for my upcoming September pattern, so that's great. I'm not really showing that to you, but as you can see it's tangerine orange, and it's knitted out of a very exciting yarn that's been blended with nettle fibres, so I'm really interested to see how that works out, and I've wanted to try it for a long time, so it's great to have the purpose for it. And then I've also got another sock here. Now this is some yarn that I had ordered for the sock collection that I'm working on in conjunction with the Crimson Sockalong. I'm doing the warm weather Sockalong, warm weather sock collection, and I'm releasing on average 1 pattern a month, but I decided to take a break in August because it's just too hot and yeah, it's too much. So it'll be back in September and October with the last 2 patterns. And I had ordered this, would you call it coral or salmon or just neon pink? I'd ordered this yarn as part of the various yarns that I purchased to make the samples, and that was actually crowdsourced, that was crowdfunded by you guys, my audience, so thank you. And I ordered them all online during lockdown, like during the most strict part of lockdown earlier in the spring, and I ordered them from a lot of local yarn shops to me here in London, and also from some hand dyers, as well as from some larger companies that spin and produce yarn on a more yeah, like a larger scale premise. I'm kind of stumbling because the word that you hear a lot of podcasters use is commercial yarn, which, as I mentioned in my knitting on budget video, it makes no sense to me because all yarn is commercial yarn. So when it comes to the hand-dyed yarns, like I tend to refer them as artisan yarns because they are, dyed on a one-on-one basis in small studios and workshops. Whereas the mass-produced yarn is obviously done in factories, so artisan workshops and larger scale factories, mass-produced. But anyway, that's just a side note. Yeah, I think about things in quite a lot of depth, especially language, or at least I try my best. Don't always succeed, but try my best. But anyway, the point I was saying was this was a beautiful hand-dyed yarn, but because I'd ordered loads of yarns online, just the colours when they came, they just weren't quite what I was expecting, and I basically had too many yarns of the same tone. So I decided not to use this for my collection. Also because I'm not sure, I don't think it goes with my olive skin tone. I just don't think it works. I think certain tones will just work with someone with a much darker skin tone or a much fairer, whereas I'm kind of firmly in the middle. So yeah, I decided to cast on my birch ply socks, which is a pattern that I released last year, and there's just something about these socks. I've seen quite a lot of finished objects of these socks, especially popping up recently on Instagram and Ravelry, and it's been so lovely because there's just something about this sock pattern that just seems to suit any type of yarn. It's really quite impressive, you know, whether it's a plain or a tonal one like this, or if it's a speckledy one, or even if it's a higgledy-piggledy pooling colours one. Yeah, just really nicey. So anyway, I'm knitting. I just decided to, you know, take a break and knit something simple, so I knit one of my old patterns instead of you know, working one of the new ones, just as a little break. And even though it doesn't suit me, as I was knitting on it and hanging out with some friends recently, I had a lot of admirers for these socks. So actually I have someone in mind. It's her birthday next week. So these will probably just go to her. So that's really good because like I had some really strong admirers, people that were really into the colour, whereas I was quite on the fence about it. I just thought it was going to be different when I ordered it, basically. So yeah, that feels really great actually, and it was just what I needed to do, something quite small. And then I've nearly finished the second sock, so you may not see it again, but I'll take a picture to share it with you guys, because yeah, it's got to go for the birthday. But then I'll clear my needles, just whiz out the socks for September and get going with those last two patterns that I've got planned. So that's all the knitting really, but then I've been quite busy in my sewing studio, at least I was the other week. Haven't managed to get into it lately because, as I mentioned last time, I've set up a studio in a family spare bedroom, and because it is a guest room, it's not always available to me. But that's fine. So I've been working on the prizes for the Crimson Sockalong, and what they are 3 little drawstring project bags. You're going to get one of 3 bags full. So this is a pattern of a drawstring project bag that I use quite a lot. This is my one that I made, and yeah, made them out of some materials that I had, and I tried to do them in crimson shades, so reds and deep rich pinks, and a little bit of neutrals and jewel tones. So the first one is in quite a thick, it's almost like a deck chair fabric, or you might imagine that a pair of jeans might come in it, and it's lined with this vintage cotton with a white button and a really nice like cotton, heavy cotton tape in an ecru colour as the drawstring. So quite a little bit stiff because they're brand new, but they've got the main body there and it's perfect for a pair of socks. And then they've got this pocket on the front with the button loop there. So if you have a printed pattern, you can fold it in half and stuff it in there, or you can just keep some little bits and bobs in the front, or if you have like a little purse where you have your notions in, you can shove that in there, or if you have anything with like one of those keychain, you know what I mean, when you press the spring and it clasps on, you could clasp it onto either the button tab or the loop here, and I quite often just thread some safety pins onto them. And they're 3 bags full because they're all coming with a skein of yarn, and I showed off the yarns last episode, and you know, I'll keep showing off these beautiful prizes. So there are 3 bags full. So originally I was going to do the prize draw on Ravelry, but it just didn't make sense, what with the fact that it's just not accessible or not usable for so many people these days. Especially people that were like very active participants in the group, you know, they contacted me, and I felt really sorry because I just haven't come up with a great alternative kind of community space, but it is what it is. We'll just have to do our best and just keep, you know, communicating to each other on YouTube. So I'll be drawing from the entrance, from the Instagram hashtag CrimsonSockalong and from the Ravelry group. So there's 3 bags, so it'll be split across there. And then I was going to do an extra prize draws for anyone that managed to knit 6 patterns. So 1 from Ravelry, 1 from Instagram, and then I think it's just going to be easier to do the prize of the 6 patterns, to draw from the list of 6 patterns if anyone's done that on Ravelry. Yeah, but if you've got any thoughts about that, do leave me a comment down below if you're one of the people that's planning on doing the 6 socks in 6 months. So yeah, so there's a little skein of yarn, just 1, so you can either knit a pair of shorty socks, or you can do something with contrast heels and toes, or do some colour blocking, or just get creative, or do something totally different that's not socks. So that's that one, so that's striped red and white. And then I've got this, which is red with these like blue squiggles, and a vintage button here, and some lovely grey cotton tape, and then like a bright sky blue lining. And then this one's going to come with this orange citrine, it's called. It's not really citrine because I've got a citrine ring on here, and it's yellowy, so honestly yarn colours and names so misleading. But anyway, it's a really nice soft orange, like an orange ice, you know, like a sorbet or something like that. That's what it is, really, orange sorbet. And so that's going to go in there. And then the last one is this jazzy floral fabric with like feathers on it and kind of succulents or something like that. And it's got pink velvet ties. Yeah, so it's really sweet. And then again, little vintage mottled pink button. And it's got a bright pink lining. I love that scrap of fabric that I found, just kind of eked it out. And it's got the blue and purple yarn there. So 3 really exciting prizes. So yeah, I made the bags and donated 1 skein of yarn, which was from your crowdsourcing, so thank you. And then a viewer actually donated the other 2 skeins of yarn, which is Kwagu hand dyed. So it's super nice prizes. So 3 chances of winning. So whatever, you know, medium you want to enter on, just hop on over there. Obviously, the more times you post or use the hashtags on Instagram respectively, the more times that you will have chances of entering. So, you know, you could post every day with Crimson Sockalong and you'll be eligible for all of those entrants. And if you have knit one of my sock patterns since May and you have forgotten to add in the hashtag Crimson Sockalong on Instagram, please do make sure that you go back and do that, or just double check if you're not sure, because I would hate for you not to have a chance of being entered. So that was what I've been sewing, and then next I'll just show you a little bit of mending that I've been doing. The first is a dress that you might have seen on the podcast before, and it was a vintage dress. I got it from second-hand shop in Brighton. I mean, I say vintage, I think it's 90s, so it's not like it's that old. And it's got this tiger print in a viscose fabric, and it's a bit too big for me, but it kind of works because it's very billowy and drapey, and the armholes are edged in just, it's not even a bias binding, it's just like a little strip of fabric that was overlocked on, but somehow the overlocking was all coming off and it was fraying. So there's not really loads to see, but I just folded that back on itself and just zigzagged around it a few times, and I had to do that on both sides, just the same issue happening. So yeah, it's not the neatest of mends, but it all gets hidden in the fabric, and that's good because it means that I don't have like weird frayed holy bits of fabric in the armpits anymore. And then the next bit of mending is a multiple mend, something that I have actually mended before, and it's this t-shirt. And yeah, it all wore out in the armholes, and I did patch it, and you might be wondering why I bothered to mend a t-shirt, and it's just because the fabric is really nice, it's really soft and ribbed, and just sometimes you do want to save things rather than just throw them away or cut them up for rags. So it's been mended quite a lot, and probably will be mended a little bit more still before it really reaches the end of its life. And it's just an at-home t-shirt, so it's okay if it's really raggedy. So you can see that I'd already patched in under the arms with some jersey, and then it actually wore away more. So I just reached into my box of jersey, I just grabbed the first scrap I could find, which was brown striped rather than grey, and then I just put another patch on it, and I zigzagged around inside, and then you can see that on the outside. And then sometimes if the hole is really big, oh here's the hole here, you can see the brown poking in the corner. Sometimes if the hole's big, I'll just zigzag more there. So that's the old patch. So it's getting very Cinderella Frankenstein, as you can see, is another one there. Yeah, that was that. And I think the same on the other side. No, nothing on the other side, so just one side. But yeah, I'll just show you the old bits of mending too. So it had a white neckband, so then I just zigzagged with white along the neckband. I didn't add any extra fabric just to stop the fraying, and then another hole there. Yeah, sometimes it's just worth hanging on to things for a little bit longer. As I said, it's because the fabric is really, really nice. It's not just a normal kind of plain jersey. It's actually something really lovely to wear and very soft cotton. So that's a little bit of mending, and as I mentioned, I haven't really managed to get into my studio ever since I finished sewing these 3 project bag prizes for you guys, and I still don't have any grand plans for the sewing. I reunited myself with my mending pile, you know, and I found old mending projects that I'd stashed away inside boxes of fabric and stuff, so I'm just working my way slowly through those with success, which is great. Then I've got a couple of things I need to finish off, like I had a skirt I made but I wanted to change the lining fabric, and I was actually making a 2-piece outfit earlier on in the spring that I never finished the jacket, so I just need to finish it off. It's not very much more to go. And then, you know, ever since I've been doing all of this mending, I just feel like I've just got far too many clothes and there's no need to make anything new. But I do have some ideas of things that I want to tackle as a learning kind of experiment maybe. And one of those things is that I want to make myself a 2-piece suit with a pair of like cigarette pants that are quite slender and a tailored jacket. And the reason for that is because if you don't know, I'm a PhD student and I'm right in the middle of my PhD, which has been disrupted due to the pandemic, unfortunately, but it's just the way it is. And I'm in the middle, I'm going into my 4th year out of 5, which might have to be longer because of this massive disruption. It really wasn't well timed at all, but I think my supervisors were more upset about that than I was. I was just quite, you know, it is what it is, and I'll just have to make the best of things and get on when hopefully things settle down a little bit more. So yeah, so in a couple of years I will be doing a Viva, which is a horrific oral exam that you have to do where you defend your PhD, defend it from attack, which I'm totally dreading, and I want to make a suit to wear to my Viva. Now, I did specialise in tailoring in my bachelor's degree. I specialised in period tailoring and very old-fashioned hand tailoring as well. Like I learnt from a tailor who, you know, used to work for the Opera House, and everything is done in a really old-fashioned way, like the Victorian way. So that's what I did, and I did both men's and women's tailoring. So that, you know, I did that, what was that, 2011, so 10 years ago was when I was doing all of that tailoring. So that is my background. So it's been a few years since I've made a suit really from scratch, because the difference between you know, studying dressmaking and making things in university and then going out in industry and working in it is, when you're at university you sort of have this make-believe scenario that you are the head and you're making all of the decisions, the design decisions, the making decisions, whereas when you go into the real world you're not the head of the workshop, you're at the bottom of the pile, so you just end up doing like all of the more repetitive, maybe foundational jobs, you could think of it that way. And also the work is separated out a lot more, so rarely would you, especially as a junior, you know, be the person that drafted the pattern and cut the suit and, you know, did all the basting and tailor tacking and fit it and put it all together. So, you know, that's fine. It's just the difference between student and practitioner, which was a really wonderful thing to learn in my past life, where I used to be a costumier for performance, for the theatre primarily. But anyway, it's been a few years, the point I'm trying to make, quite a few years since I've done that from scratch. So I had a little think about it, and I had a little vision about how I wanted to turn up to this horrific Viva, which is still like, it's probably 3 years down the line because there's such a long delay between, you know, finishing a thesis draft and then sending it off to be edited and bound and then submitting it and then letting it be read and then preparing for the Viva. It's like, goes on forever basically. Hopefully I'll get it done before I'm 40. I'm 29 for the record. But yeah, so I want to wear a suit to my Viva, and I want to make the suit because I want to wear an orange suit, like a really lovely, rich, blood orange suit. And obviously I'm gonna have to make that, right? I don't, you know, a pink suit would be nice, but I think it's too girly, and a red suit, it would be gorgeous, but I think it might, you know, it's got the, I don't want it to be a red flag to a bull, to a jovial examiner, being very sarcastic here, to an examiner that's on the prowl. I don't want to give them any blood, so I thought orange is a nice compromise. So because I know I want to make that suit, I think I will want to start drafting and toiling the suit pattern, and then maybe make a preliminary suit, maybe even just out of black, which sounds so almost funereal, but it could also be very, very chic, you know, like, is it Le Smoking, the Yves Saint Laurent image of the naked lady in the very low cut suit with no shirt. So yeah, those are my sort of dreams, tailoring dreams at the moment. I've never made a trouser suit for myself. I've made several period trouser suits, many, for actors. But yeah, never for a woman. I've made skirted suits for a woman. And yeah, that's sort of my ideas. Anyway, that was a bit of a ramble. So maybe we'll get into the studio soon, but at the moment, I'm afraid just don't expect anything more than more patching and mending. That's where we are at the moment. And then the last section that I'll talk about briefly is Larder Life, which is where I talk about things, concoctions that I make at home, herbal remedies and foraging, and sometimes things from the garden. And I did do a little bit of foraging a couple of weeks ago, just before it got extremely hot. So I think that in the south, a lot of the plants might have gone over in the heat a little bit, but I think further north in England and certainly in Scotland, you might still be okay. So I did some foraging for blackberries, sloe berries, and elderberries, and I've got the elderberries here because I laid them out to dry, and it feels way too early. I think when you look in the field guides, all of this hedgerow stuff is meant to come out in September, and I got it in the very last week of July. So yeah, way too early, but that's the realities of climate change. And I am going to make, oh, there's a bit of like plant fluff. It's not dandelion, but it's that kind of thing that looks like sheep's wool. So with the elderberries, I'm going to infuse them in port and make a delicious tincture. I'm going to put like ginger and lemon peel and herbs in the port and elderberries. And elderberries are very strongly antiviral, so that's something that's obviously needed at the moment. And the inspiration and recipes that I get for all of this stuff come from my good friend Kim, who is a qualified practitioner and researcher in herbal medicine, and she has got 2 books, and I've talked about them quite a lot on the channel, but she's actually recently started uploading videos to her YouTube channel for her company, The Handmade Apothecary. So I'll put a link to that down below in the show notes if you want to check them out and check out their books, which I really highly recommend. So yeah, elderberries are going to go into herbal medicine. And elderberries, people always think that they're delicious, but they actually taste completely vile and revolting. So it'll be really nice in port. And then the sloe berries are in the freezer because I need to get some gin to infuse them into gin. So that's not going to be medicinal. That will just hopefully be delicious. And then what else did I say? The blackberries my friend took home with her and then baked into a delicious blackberry flapjack. So that was really, really yummy. And not medicinal, but maybe just good for mood. Mood enhancing by sugar. And then the other thing was, in early May, I think it was, I foraged for hawthorn flowers, and then I finally, filtered them. So I had tinctured the flowers in brandy and in vodka just to kind of experiment and see how it would differ. And I can confirm that the traditional remedy of putting hawthorn flowers in brandy is much more delicious than vodka, in which you can smell and taste the flowers a lot more strongly, whereas brandy has got its own flavour which disguises the medicinal qualities and the medicinal smells and tastes much more. Just had to keep reminding myself and others that it's medicinal, because everyone's like, ooh, flowers in vodka are fun, and I'm like, oh no, it really is medicine. It's disgusting. Don't expect it to taste nice. And hawthorn is like calming nerves and anxiety, winter blues, and also kind of different heart conditions. But I am not a doctor, the mandatory disclaimer, or rather I'm in training to be a doctor, but I'm not a medical practitioner, because my doctorate is in philosophy. Not in physiology. Yeah, so look up remedies and take with caution and seek your own medical advice. Obviously, don't take it from me, and you know, get the information from like Kim's book, or you know, look elsewhere for websites online. But hawthorn berries are coming out now, and I think hopefully they won't be too blasted by the sun in this heat wave, so hopefully I'll be able to get some berries, and then for next year I'll try a double infusion where you have the hawthorn berries and the flowers together. And then last thing I want to share in Larder Life are some beauty products that I actually did with Kim when I managed to visit with her the other week. Yay, we can see friends again. And I'm pretty sure these recipes were from her recipe book. It's like the yellow one of the Handmade Apothecary. Again, I'll put the link down below. So she made us make, I'm not quite sure. She sort of did a workshop. She was very instructive, let's say, and we made a delicious body butter massage balm with grapefruit, neroli and frankincense, and when you open the jar it really smells like a spa. It's really quite amazing. So I've been enjoying rubbing that in to my skin, and it leaves it so smooth, and it gets rid of any of those like rough patches or little skin bumps and things like that. So that's actually been really effective, and it's been really effective at like healing my scratches and scars from gardening and foraging and stuff like that. And then I made a face mask with her too, which has got different types of clay, ground oats, rose petals and lavender, so very luxurious, although you look like a horrible monster when you put it on. And then when it dries, I had it drying, and then I had a friend come round, and the mask was taking longer to dry, so I still had it on my face, and I answered the door to my friend and I was like, I can't talk. I can't move my face. It felt really super mad. So anyway, really busy doing things for inside and outside the body, and hopefully I'll continue at that, because it's been a really satisfying enterprise, and also just really lovely to be able to go out into local places like my park. Oh, wasp just flew past the camera. I realise that I've now learnt the names of many of the shrubs and trees and bushes and plants, whereas before they were a bit more of a they were just a wilderness to me. You know, a tree was just a tree, and now I know that actually, you know, it's an avenue of lime trees that I enjoy jogging down in the autumn, that cast shade, and that in early summer they created an amazing smell. And they're lime trees, which, you know, you have linden, that you can have tea, that again is a calming tea that calms the nerves and is good for anxiety. So it's really like amazing to put the knowledge into context, and just learn a bit more about what surrounds me, and I guess take it for granted a little bit less. So that's everything for today. Hope that you enjoyed this episode, and again, welcome to new viewers. Hopefully this gives you a bit of a flavour of what my channel is like. It's a mixed bag, because basically I live my life through textiles, and through textiles you can also think of it as a metaphor which brings other things in, animal, plant or mineral, as it were. Do hit subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. For those of you who came for the kind of budgetary tips and stuff like that, I'm planning to continue releasing videos in relation to that theme. Next week hopefully I'll be able to release the one about substituting yarn, and then I have got other videos planned. I'm doing a sock series as well to support the Crimson Sockalong too. And then if you have any, you know, video requests or ideas, do always feel free to pop them into the comments down below. I'll make note of them, and at some point, you know, especially if I get a lot of requests for similar ideas, I will make them at some point. That's it for me. So yeah, have a really good rest of the week. and happy knitting and happy making. Take care. Bye bye.